Today's case is disturbing, and it forces us to ask a very uncomfortable question. At what point does toxic become deadly? In 2022, a 24-year-old OnlyFans model known online as Fake Barbie was making up to $100,000 a year selling adult content. She had 3 children, a volatile relationship, and a boyfriend she accused of cheating. Now, hours after he broke up with her, she picked up a knife. Later, she would say that she only meant to scare him. But by 1:30 a.m., 22-year-old Bradley Lewis was pronounced dead on the kitchen floor of their apartment. This is the story of Abigail White, the man who died, Bradley Lewis, and the voice note that prosecutors say revealed everything. If you're new here, I'm Holly Mae Cormier, author of Memphis, a crime thriller novel. Okay, so let's get into it. Abigail White lived in the UK and had built an online persona under the name Fake Barbie. She was active on OnlyFans and reportedly earned significant money from her subscribers. On social media, she portrayed a glamorous, confident life. But behind closed doors, family and friends described something very different. Her relationship with Bradley Lewis, her boyfriend, was unstable very early on in the relationship. There were arguments, accusations of cheating, breakups, humiliations, and lots of jealousy. And according to court testimony, violence. This wasn't a calm relationship that suddenly exploded one night. It had been escalating for months. So let's talk a little bit about the relationship dynamic. So Bradley Lewis was 22 years old. Friends described him as quiet and sometimes overwhelmed by the chaos in the relationship. The couple had 3 young children together, but their home environment was reportedly filled with tension. There were several previous incidents where police were called into the home. At one occurrence before the fatal night that we're going to be talking about, the crime, Abigail had already stabbed Bradley during an earlier argument. He survived that incident. Think about that. A stabbing had already happened, and yet the relationship continued. Experts often say that cycles of domestic violence don't begin with lethal force, they escalate. Boundaries shift. What once would have ended a relationship now becomes normalized. And by March 2022, that normalization had reached a dangerous level. So on March 25th, 2022, the couple had another argument. Bradley told Abigail that he was ending their relationship for good. And according to reports, he had been speaking to other women. That confrontation triggered something. Both had reportedly been drinking. There were also reports of cocaine use that night, which prosecutors argued that alone the volatility in the home and the tense situation. They went out to a pub separately that evening, and witnesses later described tension between the couple. After returning home, the argument continued, and then came the voice note. So at some point that night, Abigail had sent a friend a voice memo. In it, she said, "I fully believe I am capable of killing him." That message would later become central evidence in court. Prosecutors argued it showed intent and, at minimum, awareness of her escalating mindset. Now, defense lawyers would argue that it was an emotional exaggeration. Words said in anger, not in a plan. But only hours later, Bradley Lewis had a fatal stab wound to his chest. And this reminds me of something. Courtney Clenny, OnlyFans model, stabbed her boyfriend in the chest as well. I don't know. Just watch that video. It's on my channel. So Abigail herself called emergency services. So the stabbing. Shortly after midnight, emergency responders arrived at the home. Bradley had suffered a single stab wound. The injury pierced his heart. Despite medical efforts, he was pronounced dead around 1:30 a.m. Abigail reportedly told responders she had not meant to kill him. She claimed that she only wanted to scare him. One knife, one moment, one irreversible outcome. The prosecution argued this was not an accident. They said that this was a culmination of escalating violence and jealousy in a very toxic relationship. Abigail was arrested at the scene. She was charged with murder. The case quickly attracted media attention because of her online persona as fake Barbie. Headlines focused on her OnlyFans earnings. But in court, the focus shifted to the relationship history, the prior violence, and of course, that voice note that she had sent her friend. The prosecution presented a picture of a volatile relationship where Bradley had expressed fear. The defense argued that Bradley had been abusive as well, and that the final incident was not premeditated. Now, during trial proceedings, prosecutors emphasized the previous stabbing incident that Abby was accused of on Bradley, the threatening voice note, the escalation after the breakup, the use of alcohol and drugs that night. They argued that the stabbing was an emotional, chaotic moment that spiraled out of control. The jury ultimately had a decision here. Was this a murder, or was it a lesser charge tied to the loss of control, especially while under the influence of drugs and alcohol? So in 2023, the jury found Abigail White guilty of murder. She was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term to be served before parole eligibility. The judge noted the prior violence and the chilling nature of the voice message sent before the fatal incident. Bradley Lewis was just 22 years old. 3 children were left without their father, and now, of course, their mother, who is imprisoned for killing their father. So the bigger conversation here. This case forces a broader discussion about domestic violence, especially when the perpetrator is female, right? We often imagine one specific dynamic, but domestic violence can be complex, mutual, escalating, and deeply toxic on both sides. Substance abuse adds volatility. Jealousy intensifies insecurity. And when weapons enter the picture, their risk multiplies. And the "I only meant to scare him" statement from Abigail, it just reflects something we see often in impulsive violent crimes. A failure to understand how fast control disappears once a weapon is involved. There are a few clear warning signs here. There was prior physical violence in the relationship. There was threatening language, substance abuse issues on both parties, repeated breakups and reconciliations, and escalating jealousy in the relationship. So when violence becomes normalized, each new incident feels less shocking until it isn't, until someone doesn't survive it. So there was one voice note, one irreversible moment. Abigail White said that she didn't mean to kill Bradley, but intent, recklessness, and escalation all collided that night. And Bradley Lewis never got another chance to walk away. If you like true crime stories like this one, please subscribe to my channel. Look in the description to purchase my novel, Memphis. It is a bestseller on Amazon. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much.